Welcome to Relatively Speaking, episode 13. Let's get it.
Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Mickelson Morley, it showed that the earth they don't move, huh? What they do, shorten the length of the ruler. Hey, that's just how they fooled ya. Tune in Wednesdays, bet that we gon' school ya. Mickelson Morley, it showed no displacement. Mickelson, Gale, Pearson, it measured rotation. Let's break it down in layman. That means the Earth is stationed. No planets and spaceships, they're all animations. Relatively speaking. First day after the weekend. Relatively speaking. First day after the weekend.
What's up, familia? Alright, so this is going to be a pretty short episode, but if you don't know, Robert Bennett, the PhD physicist, who's obviously a legend, came on Ladle Gravy on In the Field. Just came and chopped it up with everybody at Ether Cosmology, so I'm going to drop link to that stream. You should sub to that channel, show some love. If you want to listen to that conversation, it was very good. So I dropped that in the YouTube, in the Rockfin, and in the Rumble, so you can check that out. That's why we're starting a little bit later and not gonna go as late. All right, cool. So I titled it fine tuning. If you're not familiar with what fine tuning is, it's basically the idea that in cosmology specifically, that the universe is so intricately ordered that it defies statistical odds to such an extent that it's argued it would require some fine tuning. And of course, fine tuning requires a fine tuner. So, all right. So I do think that we are on Rockfin, Rumble, and YouTube. Hopefully, we're going good. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this real fast, quick announcement. So if you don't know, we're doing a community fast, and I'm putting a lot of stuff together for the community fast. So anyone that got some blends, some of the electric light blends, if you don't know, we have fire and coal, just the regular fuel, and then coal, which is activated charcoal. Then you have different versions of it. And it's like an electrolyte blend. You put it on your water. It helps keep you hydrated and many other things. It definitely helps when you're fasting, right? And so we're going to do a community fast. And we'll get more into that later. And some of you guys may already know. But doing that soon. If you go to Etheric State, which is in the description, you'll see the countdown to when we intend on starting the community fast. Anyone that's grabbed the blends, I'm going to be sending you an email soon with all the details. And I'm putting together this motherload of fasting information. So testimonials of people, crazy elements and stuff like that have been healed and cured. And I'm very passionate about this. I think it's super important. And when you guys see some of the miraculous things that have happened, whether that be diabetes 1, not medical advice, right? Which is allegedly not curable. Diabetes 2 to arthritis, to restless leg syndrome, to high blood pressure, to migraines, to all this stuff. I really encourage you guys to embark on the journey with this, because I think it's going to be epic. And I plan to make it a regular thing. If you don't know, I had one of the craziest spiritual experiences I've ever had fasting. So throw that all out there. Just a reminder, if you don't know, if you didn't see the last show, that we're doing a community fast. We're all going to work together. We'll have a private group and we'll help keep each other accountable. I'll talk more about this at the end too, but I'm also going to start a thing where I try to network a bunch of like younger men together and kind of we help keep each other accountable to be like the strong men with morals that is clearly needed in society today. So stay tuned for that as well. All right, so a lot of stuff coming. You guys will see it start popping off in the next few days. I'm going to show you guys this, show you guys the website real fast so you guys know. Full screen. Yep, so if you go to Etheric State, this pops up. So if you get any blends, purchase any blends, you get an exclusive access to the Community Fast private group and a merchandise discount. So you get 25% off any of the merch, which is specifically made for this fast. If you see the merch right here, I'll show it to you in a second. And you get 35% off with purchases over $200. So if you come down here, you'll see that there's like the time we planned on starting it and roughly just over 5 days. This is subject to change a bit, but there's no specific time that you have to do the fast or anything. Or if you think you can only do intermittent fasting or whatever, I still encourage everyone to kind of participate. I think it's going to be cool. All right, that's cool. And if you come over here, it'll actually take you to merch. It's pretty cool. I want to show you guys the merch here. So you see, fire. Super cool. But cool. There's that announcement. Again, just go to Etheric State and sounds good. All right, let's get into the show. And I will go ahead and address this too. Like, I made merch back in the day, and apparently it was like poor quality, and like some people complained, or eventually it would start to kind of fall apart and stuff. So I did a bunch of research and found like the best quality merchandise. And with the discount, I did the math. I literally did the math to where like I'm literally not making any money on the merchandise. It's just a cool like souvenir to have if you're part of the group and you were part of the fast. So there's that. Saying that to say, some of the prices are a little bit expensive. You may think like $30 for a shirt, but it's like really high quality premium shirts. So cool. And we'll launch the Misfits merch soon and stuff like that. I know a lot of people want the heliophobic shirt I mentioned, and I've already designed it, so that's coming out soon. So there's some of the housekeeping. We'll talk about the rest of the housekeeping at the end of the show. All right, so we're gonna watch this video to start the idea here, but again, it's pretty crazy, and it's kind of parallels to the Relatively Speaking I did back in the day that is about anything but God, right? Anything but a creator. That's kind of what this is. Similar thing, fine tuning. It's a. If you type in fine tuning in YouTube or fine tuning cosmology, either one, you're just gonna see all these atheists talking about how fine tuning actually proves there isn't a God and all this crazy nonsense. It's so wild how they try to spin this. But all right, let's cover it. Like I said, tonight's not gonna be a super long stream, as it is already 11:15 for me. So hopefully it works. If not, then we'll pop over to a browser. All right, guys, just give me feedback on the quality.
From the earliest times, men have looked into the heavens and wondered about the immense...
Scientists have come to realize a startling truth. The universe looks suspiciously like a fix. Our existence is balanced on a razor's edge of incomprehensible fineness. From the very first moment of its inception, the universe's fundamental parameters were delicately calibrated so that intelligent life could exist. Scientists used to believe that the Big Bang was utter chaos, a random state of nature. Given time and some luck, intelligent life forms would eventually come about somewhere. But the more scientists studied the universe, the more they realized that the opposite is true. A staggering list of initial conditions began to emerge, all of which were incomprehensibly fine-tuned to allow intelligent life. These are known as the fundamental constants and quantities of nature. These values are so precise, so overwhelming, that it's difficult to illustrate the enormity of these findings.
No one of us has been untouched by our advanced
To get a feel for the odds, consider the number of seconds that have ticked by since time began.
And just, of course, so, initial conditions being like, of course, what was required to, be the conditions at the beginning, quote unquote. Now, if you haven't seen it, I do strongly encourage you to watch the Atheism Debunked stream. This also parallels to that. But when it comes to cosmology, which is, of course, what Relatively Speaking as a series is about, the initial conditions to try to even pretend to put forward this absurd, asinine notion that, there was a singularity with the Big Bang that expanded in all directions and is now going 4 to 8 times faster than the speed of light, is insane, right? Because over time, we look in so many different portions of the electromagnetic spectrum. We see so many different observations. We see further and further out in what people call space. And it starts to really kind of dwindle down the possibility of that claim, right? And it now has a laundry list of conditions and requirements that are absurd. Such an extent that the popular out, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is the idea of multiverse. Okay, and so cosmology, and although the mainstream may not let you know this, and certainly not if you try to Google anything related to the discussions of the Earth that we cover on this channel, there is a cosmological crisis, right? And of course, cosmology being like an interpretation or understanding of this realm, right, in entirety. It's a very important field. It kind of is going to mold your actual worldview, right? And your epistemology, right? Your pursuit of truth, your ontological worldview synonyms there, right? So it is pretty wild that they won't really lay this out, and then whenever it starts to get addressed, if it does, people will actually invoke the multiverse, and this is the idea of an infinite amount of effectively parallel universes or an infinite amount of dimensions. There are all kinds of different ways to try to explain it, but the idea is there's nothing that we could observe that would show us this place was designed or that it had a fine tuner, because no matter how statistically impossible it is, which in case you don't know, there actually is a mathematical number for impossible. No matter how statistically impossible or improbable these requirements become, since there's an infinite amount of universes, then the odds are these conditions would be satisfied eventually, strictly due to probability. So it's effectively fills in the gap. People will say God of the gaps. Well, people use time of the gaps, like, oh, there's enough time, and now they just use universe of the gaps, just an possibility of the gaps. Basically, infinite possibilities can answer anything. And that should be pretty telling to you. If the evidence begins to show that there is a requirement for some type of fine tuner, this is not just me saying this. This is well known at the highest levels of astrophysics and astronomy, and actually just physics in general, even all the way down to the quantum scale, because you have fine tuning issues all throughout physics, from the small to the big. So, all right, just to get the base premise here as we continue forward.
10 to the 20th power. That is 10, followed by 20 zeros. Now consider the force of gravity. If the gravitational constant had been out of tune by just 1 part, in 10 to the 60th power, devastation would have ensued. The universe would have either expanded so rapidly that no stars could form, or else collapsed back in upon itself with the same result. No stars, no planets, no life.
The heavens cannot be studied at first hand, for the information rides in on beams of light, the immense, mysterious universe into which we are born.
Or what about the distribution of the matter and energy in the early universe? If these were not evenly distributed to an unthinkable precision, then the universe would have been hostile to life of any kind. How extraordinary that anything should exist. The fact that the universe is fine-tuned for life is uncontroversial. How then does one best explain this incomprehensible fine-tuning? There are three live options: physical necessity, chance, or design. The hypothesis of physical necessity says that the universe must be fine-tuned for life. A universe which is hostile to life is impossible, it said. However, not only is a life-prohibiting universe possible, a universe without life is far more likely. Each of the parameters that governs the universe can take on a wide range of values, thus reinforcing the improbability of fine-tuning.
And so this would basically be a naturalistic approach, right? If you watch atheism, naturalism being the idea that everything that exists basically it can be explained within the natural world. Nothing really exists outside the natural material world. To try to explain the fine-tuning discussion or to address it, the idea that the universe itself couldn't even exist, it couldn't even have formed without fine-tuning because it's actually a requirement, and the universe must be created even if it has no specific design behind it in such a way that life could exist, as if there's some intrinsically built-in requirement or something, right? And again, we're not going to tip all the way over into the philosophical parameters of such absurd notions. You know, when you start saying built in, and you can't say built in. And anyway, as you just explained, that just fundamentally doesn't make sense, right? If there's no actual meaning, purpose, or design behind this place, and there is nothing logically that would require it to ensure being able to sustain life, right? It doesn't make any sense. And people may wonder, like, really, what does this have to do with, you know, like the heliocentric model and stuff like that? Because, you know, that's typically what this show's about. Well, it has everything to do with it. Again, just to explain to you, fine-tuning is a major portion of cosmology, okay? And we're going to get into some of the specifics, but it will begin to make sense to you. This is very important because if you're not new to this conversation or subject or channel, certainly, you know that this is a major overarching portion of this whole entire thing, whole entire subject, is the philosophical bias against the idea that the Earth could be special, right? It's called the Copernican principle. The idea that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position, of course, named after Nicholas Copernicus, right? We'll just set him aside for a second, you know, but, you know, coming up with the idea of the heliocentric model that the sun was in the center of the entire universe, right? But so that idea, the principle isn't necessarily attributed to him directly. It's just kind of named after him. And it's the idea that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique place. Just random, it's just there. There's nothing special about where it's at. Okay, and this is a philosophical idea. Literally, it's the philosophical suggestion that it is more logical that out of the vastness of the universe, the odds are that where the Earth occupies is random and insignificant. In the grand scheme of things, it makes more sense that with the universe being that big, that where the Earth is insignificant and unimportant or random. It's not special or unique. Right? And one may say, oh, I understand the logic of that. Well, sure, yeah. If, for one, granting these claims of the size and all of this, one can try to present that, and that is a philosophical argument. That is my point. Right? You understand? We just made a logical suggestion that was philosophical, that I think it is more logical due to the immensity of the universe that the Earth's position is not special or unique. It's a philosophical decision. And what will typically be removed from this subject being taught or introduced to children or even in university is that is the primary decision, the primary lens. I may turn into the baller Austin tonight. Primary lens in which people look through this idea, you know? Oh, okay, well, we're not special. Now let's look into cosmology. Okay, and that's the facts. That's the facts of the matter. And so that is how it is relevant to everything that we discussed regarding modern cosmology. Because if you go into looking into astronomical observations with the presupposition or the philosophical bias that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position, right? That's going to immediately you're going to tailor all of your interpretations to that idea. Obviously, correct? Very important when it comes to trying to figure out what's really going on or the true nature of this realm. So that is the relevance here. And, you know, people get frustrated. They're like, oh, Austin wants to put down his religion. We're not, nothing to do with religion. We're not talking about religion, nothing like that. We're talking about logic. We're talking about what actually is. It's an epistemological pursuit, right? We're trying to find out what the truth is, which is obviously inherently important. Okay, so that was maybe a bit overdone, but just wanted to really make the point to you guys because it's very important. All right, moving on.
So what about the alternative of chance? Most scientists recognize that pure chance is not an adequate explanation of the fine-tuning. The mathematical odds are simply too great to overcome. Many scientists have tried to increase the probability of a life-permitting universe by postulating a multiverse. They imagine that there are an infinite number of universes, and we are just one member of the ensemble. Since we have an unlimited amount of chances to get it right, then the odds will be in our favor. This move is perhaps the greatest compliment to the power of the fine-tuning argument. For in order to explain fine-tuning, scientists have turned to a philosophical explanation. The multiverse itself cannot be detected, measured, observed, or proved. Moreover, the multiverse faces a devastating objection. If we were just a random member of a multiverse, then we could explain away all sorts of improbabilities in our everyday lives. We shouldn't be surprised when the roulette wheel continually lands on the red 20. After all, the math implies that this is happening somewhere without foul play in the multiverse, so why not here? In the end, then, neither physical necessity nor chance offers a good explanation of the fine-tuning of the universe. As Freeman Dyson confesses, the more I study the universe and the details of its architecture, the more evidence I find that the universe, in some sense, must have known we were coming.
Science is bringing us closer to an understanding of who and where we are.
Oh, very cool. Just to kind of intro the combo. What did this guy say? The apostate deceiver Witsit puts forth the biblical cosmology, but then denies that Jesus Christ is Lord. I don't deny that Yeshua is Lord. I mean, that means master. He's the high priest. He's the Messiah. I 100% don't deny that. I deny that he's the Father because it specifically and expressly states that he is not the Father. Anyway, so yeah, and this is a pretty interesting. Actually, let me go ahead and show you guys this as well. So here we go, fine-tuning. The strong nuclear force were just 2% greater in magnitude. Hydrogen would not undergo the normal process of fusion into helium, but rather create stable diprotons, meaning that stars as we know them would not exist. Now, this is mainstream cosmology, okay? This is just one of the many examples of how the current model of cosmology has been proposed in all of its stupor. It constantly has to end up invoking just like statistical improbabilities that are mind-blowing. So this is based on what they claim stars are and how they are created, which we all know is just complete pseudoscience. This narrowness of the range of physical constants controlling the process is an example of fine-tuning. First precisely described by Hickey in the 60s, fine-tuning problems arise in the value of the cosmological constant, the ratio of gravitational to electromagnetic force strengths, the abundance of dark matter in the universe, and the curvature of the space. See the flatness problem. Now, the cosmological constant is dark energy, right? So the value of the cosmological constant, the constant energy that is supposedly expanding this universe to just create the illusion that we're in the center, right? And then we're going to talk about this here in a second too, the flatness problem. Questions of fine-tuning have been addressed in different ways. Some argue that anthropic principles provide an answer, that we could not ever observe parameters incompatible with our existence. It is also possible that the observed constants and the consequence of a larger theory and thus not arrived at by chance. Finally, some argue that in multiverse scenarios, all values of these constants exist somewhere. Therefore, it is no surprise to find ourselves inhabiting such a region. Now, what is this saying, right? Because this is a philosophical bias. What this is saying is basically, well, sure, the odds would seem highly unlikely, but it's really no big deal. It's actually quite expected, because for us to even be able to be here and discuss this in the first place, all of those parameters would have to be reached. So that's all that we have access to. That's all that we can observe. We wouldn't be here to observe it if all those different parameters had not been reached, due to the immensity of chance and odds and probabilities and possibilities with effectively infinite universes. And the fact that they have to, whenever faced with this issue, the number one response is that there must be infinite multiple universes. It's very telling. And like I said, if you really want to kind of take this and apply it to the meta here, go watch Atheism Debunked. Okay. So, well, actually what we'll do is we're going to watch this guy kind of discuss. Now, this guy has a lot of work that he has done talking about some of the fine-tuning problems. And you guys should consider checking out. Let's just watch this this video as well, and then we'll commentate.
Nima, just when I thought I was understanding space-time, the idea that the three dimension of space and the one of time are really the same thing as Einstein showed, just when I thought I was understanding that, you come along and tell me that space-time is doomed. Why?
Well, space-time is doomed as a really elementary consequence of the existence of both quantum mechanics and gravity. And we say space-time is doomed because if you think space-time is something real, then you should be able to meaningfully talk about separations of space and separations in time of any arbitrary amount that you like.
And this guy makes some good points. I watched this in the background, but I remember parts of it. He makes some good points. But let me just break this down in case you've never actually thought of it or heard this, okay? So, of course, the current belief system is that the Earth is a tilted, wobbling, spinning ball with water bending convexly to the exterior inside of a vacuum with an atmosphere. And as it's tilting, wobbling, and spinning, multiple wobbles, mind you, it's also flying around the sun, 66,600 miles per hour. And it is being pulled through our galaxy with the sun, 500,000 miles per hour, while simultaneously that galaxy that it is flying through is going through the universe at 1.3 million miles per hour. And that the universe is 13.5 billion years old, and that the edge of the visible universe is 46.5 billion light years. Okay? 1 light year is 5.88 trillion miles. So supposedly we're looking out and we're seeing something over 40 billion light years away. Again, 1 light year is 5.88 trillion miles, okay? Mind-blowing numbers. So that's where they then prop up the idea with, if you talk about that scale, and that's just the edge of the visible universe, which, mind you, they claim is actually expanding 4 to 8 times faster than the speed of light, a minimum of 4 times faster, then the odds are that you would have some random little thing here called the Earth, a little speck of dust that's insignificant. So the Copernican principle. The idea that the Earth is not special or unique in its position or location. Now, again, what happened was in 1927, and around that time, we began to look out into space with bigger observatories, telescopes, and Edwin Hubble saw that these distant galaxies moved in relation to the Earth, right? And then he noticed what we call redshift, which people call effectively a Doppler shift, like when the ambulance is coming towards you and the sound changes as it gets closer and then begins to change again as it goes past you, applying that same concept to light. right? And that the supposed cause of this redshift that we see out in quote unquote space is actually that everything is expanding and accelerating away from us. And since it's going away from us, then the light is shifting towards the red end of the spectrum, because you have the blue end or ultraviolet end of the visible light spectrum, and then you have the red end, right? And so if it's going away, supposedly it's red shifting. Because what we saw were these distant galaxies where, just think about it, and I know many of you guys have heard this before, but if there was a tiny little singularity where everything began, and then don't ask me where or how it got there, don't ask me what was the primary mover, don't ask me any questions like that, because they don't have an answer for those questions. And again, go watch Atheism Debunked. But you have the singularity, and then boom, it expands. Okay, it actually explodes. They don't like that word, but that's what it effectively would do. And then it expands in all directions. Okay, and then we're way over here, tucked in this insignificant corner, this little tiny speck of dust. And yeah, sure, there's crazy odds throughout all of this process, but there's an infinite amount of universes where a similar process has happened or is happening. And so we just happen to occupy and observe the one where it happens. And since we're here, that's all that we know. So sure, it looks like it's statistically improbable from our perspective, but we wouldn't even be here to have that opinion unless those had already been attained. Those probabilities had already been satisfied. Okay, so then the idea is when we look really far out in space, right, and we begin to discover other galaxies and the movement of other galaxies and distant galaxies outside of our quote-unquote galaxy, we should see things moving all over the place. So if this red and blue shift is actually relative to motion, right, we should expect to see red shift and blue shift all mixed in, going all over the place. It should be coming from that singularity. It should be specific to where it all started, right? Like if I throw a grenade and it explodes, well, the explosion came from the grenade. So we would expect to see movement all over the place, just chaos all over the place, just with no regard to the Earth, because the Earth doesn't occupy a special or unique position in the universe. It's basically insignificant. It's just a little tiny speck of dust. Again, if you really interpret the values that I just told you, which I would argue no one can truly wrap their mind around those values, right? And I'm not saying it can't be true because of that. That would be an appeal to incredulity. I'm just pointing out that anyone claiming to fully understand it simply is being disingenuous, right? Because you can't even wrap your mind around 1 trillion miles, much less 5.88 trillion miles, much less 5.88 trillion miles times 46 billion. Okay, but anyway, so yeah, then the Earth would be insignificant, right? I mean, it wouldn't occupy a special or unique place. Why would it? What we saw was, though, that it did. When we looked out, we saw everything moved in relation to the Earth and equidistantly, like evenly around us. Like everything was evenly distributed effectively, right? And that's not what was expected. So then they had to update the model to keep this Copernican principle alive, to keep up the idea that we're flying around the sun and flying through space eventually, right? Which was updated from the original idea that the sun was in the center of the universe. Okay, they claimed that everything was accelerating, expanding in all directions. Now, I know a lot of you guys already knew that, but that was a quick recap. So what that then leads us into is basically explain, really what led us into that, I should say, was the update to gravity. And if you don't know, I'm going to be putting out a bunch more edited videos. Shout out to my boy Toby. We're going to be putting out edited videos. I'm actually going to create a course, right, and source material effectively where we're going to break down each one of these things, and it'll actually be on a website, an app that I'm launching soon. And it'll break down each of these things. So you'll have information and sources that you can show other people, right? And we'll have videos and we'll have the information, right? One of them would, of course, be Michelson-Morley, which I've covered many times. And this is where all of physics changed, because we were expecting to see these two light beams that intersected, right, that were perpendicular to each other. They recombine. So you split the beam, so you keep, because you ensure that they're in the same phase. If you shoot out just one light beam and then you split the beam, then they go into opposite directions, come back, recombine, perpendicular directions, they recombine, and then they go back to the receiver. One of the light beams should have been behind the other one because the Earth was supposedly flying through space. That's not what we saw. So then we get the theory of relativity, and that's what this show is named after, because it's built upon the principle of relativity, which isn't necessarily untrue, right? But it is the idea that if I was standing on the street, I saw a carriage go past me, which is the analogy that Einstein used, that it's equally valid to say that the carriage was moving on the street, or that the street and I standing on the street were moving and the carriage was standing still. But there's truth to the idea of the principle of relativity, which was long before Einsteinian relativity, right? Which is just that, well, it can look like you're moving from different ways, right? from both different positions, it can look like the other is moving or vice versa. So all that to say, and the reason I explained all of that is because this is where everything really started to get sticky for them. And this guy's about to cover space and time. And I would like to point a few things out to you, okay? So contrary to what you may have been told, Einstein really wasn't all that much of a genius, okay? His only genius that could be attributed to him, if you believe that he wasn't just like a face propped up, frankly, right, was that he was able to grab everyone else's stuff and put it together. He was able to combine everyone else and then put it into some theory. It wasn't that he was like super innovative coming up with anything. Anyway, the main geometry, right, the space-time geometry, the 4D space geometry of Einsteinian relativity comes from Henri Poincaré, right, another physicist. And in fact, they're like basically equivalent in predictive capabilities, which is ironic, but it was an ether model, not the point. That's where he got this entire idea that we're about to cover here with space and time. Okay, and so you have Henri Poincaré explaining it is not the universe that imposes space and time on us. Rather, it is we who impose space and time on it due to convenience. That's very true. Okay, because can you hand me some space? No. Can you literally give me some space? No. What is space? Well, it's an idea, concept. Now, can you bend a concept? Can you warp a concept? Can you do anything physically to a concept? No. Can you bend love? Of course not, right? Can you bend freedom? Well, the world did do that in 2020, but not actually, right? Because you can't bend concepts, can't apply physical properties to concepts. Okay, space is a conceptual abstraction. It's actually a privation. Many of you guys have heard me explain this, but it's the idea of nothing. That's what space is. It's the absence of something else. Okay, so an example of a privation would be a shadow. Shadow is nothing in and of itself. It's the absence of light. It requires light, typically be obstructed, to then get the shadow because it's the absence of light. A zero, privation. Zero doesn't actually exist. Nothingness, emptiness, these are privations. They're concepts. And the reason that they're called a privation, what that means is that their very denotation is dependent upon something else. In the case of space, it is dependent upon matter or energy, right? It's the absence of matter or energy. So space is literally a emptiness, right, in its conceptual meaning. So it is nothing in and of itself. In fact, as it applies to relativity and this entire model, right, this current cosmological model that we were all told as if it were fact, right? It is geometry. It is a coordinate system specifically, right? Length, width, breadth. You have a volume. We have a coordinate system to describe an area or volume, right? So like if I have a garage, and then I have a car in the garage, if I pull the car out of the garage, now there's empty space where the garage was. My car was in the space in the garage. Really, there's nothing there, right? You removed the car, now you're left with empty space, quote unquote. Okay, now I know that that is very obvious, but it seems that people have been taught or try to separate those two things as if somehow Einsteinian space is different, but it is not. It is fundamentally a privation, a concept. So it's a conceptual abstraction. This is why you may have heard me say you cannot attribute physical properties to conceptual abstractions, one of which is a privation, that being space. Right? Simply, it is a coordinate system we use to describe that concept for mathematical convenience. Okay, so there's space. There's one of the major components. And this is all very important because all of this was required to try to save this model to tell us that the Earth's position wasn't special or unique, right? Therefore, doesn't have a fine tuner. This was the actual theory proposed to save that idea, to save that model. Okay? And then you have time. Now, time is also a concept, right? It is nothing that you can actually physically manipulate. It's actually how we quantify change and motion. And there's this concept that we feel we experience called passing. We see things change over time, like you get older, eventually your cells degrade over time, and then you can die. Although it's actually been proven, by the way, that even brain cells can actually be like rebuilt, or they can actually begin to grow again. But nevertheless, we see people age, right? We see the plant grow over what we call time. So, and we also see the stuff in the sky move. And so that's where we get calendars, is where we get hours, minutes, seconds, days, right? Years. It's based on motion and what we feel is passing. So you have change in motion and the idea of passing. That's what time is. That's all that it is, okay? And I explain all that to say both of these are conceptual abstractions. So they cannot be doing anything physically. They aren't anything physical. It cannot have physical properties, right? Now, that right there is the direct refutation of the theory of relativity. You don't need to get into any of the weeds. The reality of the situation is, and Tesla pointed that out immediately, and this is just a direct refutation of the theory of relativity, which again is modern gravity, okay? Is you cannot attribute physical properties to conceptual abstractions, one of which is a privation. Simply, concepts aren't physical, so concepts cannot have physical properties. Therefore, it cannot bend and warp, can't curve, time can't physically get wider and dilate. Can't. That isn't how it works. So therefore, on its face, this idea is completely illogical and impossible. So you may ask yourself, well, then why would someone ever propose it? Now, what most people will do is they'll kind of have this visceral reaction. What Austin's saying can't be true. It can't be that simple because all of these scientists, they believe in relativity. And you know, Einstein's considered a genius. And, you know, how could this guy so easily refute it? There's no way. He just doesn't understand it. That may be your natural response, but what I just said is just an actual refutation. And the reason that it exists is because no one could come up with anything better. And to this day, no one has. So you may ask yourself, well, why though? What's the motivation? Why are people so motivated to propose this if we can't come up with anything better than something that can be so effortlessly refuted? And the answer is, the alternative is that this place is special, that the Earth does occupy a special and unique position, specifically that it is in the center because it isn't moving. Therefore, you have a fine tuner, you have the antecedent of intelligent agency, etc. And this is just philosophically uncomfortable for people. Certainly people that pride themselves arrogantly, in their intellectual prowess or their career, right? And they will actually create the illusion that it's based on humility, which is exactly what Stephen Hawking said. Stephen Hawking said, and I take this position based on humility, right? That we can't be in the center. We can't disprove that we're in the center. I think that we're not, and that we can't be special because I think that's the more humble approach. But they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, really, because they then say, but listen to me, I'll tell you all the answers, I'll explain everything to you, and then they become much more important, as if they can understand some of these non-understandable things. Okay, now I know that's a lot, but I just want to break all that down so that you get a full idea of what's really going on. This is the reality of the situation. This is a philosophy. And look, if you want to believe that, that's okay. If you want to turn your head to the evidence, come up, cling on to a theory that's fundamentally impossible to try to make it sound like it's legitimate or possible or viable, that's your prerogative. But when we're teaching children that they're insignificant as if it is a definitive scientific fact, and that where they live is insignificant, it's not special, it's not unique, therefore by deduction they are not, that is a problem. And I think that you probably can make your own philosophical decisions, right? You can formulate your own worldview. And that is why I do this at all. This is the very reason that I have this channel. It's the very reason I talk about these things that get me censored and prevent this channel from ever truly growing the way that it could, is because it is very important and it's being swept under the rug. Okay, so now we know the crux of the issue here. We have the fine-tuning problem, we have the cosmological problem, and you get into where Edwin Hubble then looks out into the cosmos. And if you guys have been watching Relatively Speaking, you guys knew a bunch of that. But anyway, there you go. And, Hubble himself just actually says, like, oh, well, the fact that the Earth could be in the center, and central, meaning like special and unique, that can't be disproven. That's what all the observations imply. I mean, it can never be disproven. We must avoid it. It's horrific. It's intolerable. This is very similar to if you watch Atheism Debunked, where I quote the guy that wrote Origins of Life saying, like, well, we only have really two options, like basically intelligent design or spontaneous generation. And spontaneous generation has been scientifically disproven, but I still choose to believe what is scientifically impossible because the alternative of intelligent design makes me uncomfortable and I refuse to believe it. So you can certainly do that, but let's pull the curtain back in The Wizard of Oz and see it for what it really is and understand the reality of the situation. So this guy's going to break down some of the problems with space and time. And I found it to be pretty interesting when I was listening to it in the background, so I hope you guys enjoy.
We can talk about separations in time, seconds, separation in space of meters, but you should also be able to talk about it at arbitrarily short times and arbitrarily short distances. And we know that that's impossible because of gravity, because if we try to probe very, very tiny distances by the uncertainty principle, we have to use a lot of energy. And when we get to tiny enough distances, we have to use so much energy that we collapse the little region of space-time we're trying to look at into a black hole. And that makes it impossible to probe what's going on in that region.
Because so much energy by E equals mc squared, Einstein's famous equation, means that there's so much mass, the mass and energy curve space-time, and it all collapses.
Exactly, and they make it impossible to see the region you were trying to look at. So this is a very simple thought experiment that...
Mark Kings, thank you for the $13.99 super chat. Love your channel and your delivery. Cheers from Canada. Thank you so much. Much love. I'll try to stay up with the super chats. I didn't want to miss them.
That takes together the two basic ingredients, quantum mechanics, gravity. You put together quantum mechanics and gravity, and you see that it's simply impossible to make sense of space and time separations that are smaller than a very tiny amount. But the distances and times that we're talking about are the Planck length, the Planck time, Planck length 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, of Planck time 10 to the minus 43 seconds. So we know that space and time, just from this simple argument, can't really make sense because we can't talk about arbitrary separations in space.
So let me understand what that would mean. That would mean that you cannot have space and neither space nor time being continuous down to these very, very, very small
exactly
lengths or moments, and that at those moments there's some sort of a separation. And does that mean that space and time become quantized?
All right, someone said I missed some stuff. All right, Warboy, thank you for the $5 super chat. Would you ever consider breaking down the moon map model from Vibes of Cosmos? Do you have thoughts on this? I find it interesting. I find the idea that a lot of the different maps have different depictions of the continents, and when you begin to pick and choose some of the different depictions, it starts to actually line up if you kind of piece them together. Certainly when you look at older maps, I do find it interesting. The concept itself is pretty interesting. Will I ever cover it? Maybe. I think it would be pretty time consuming to prepare for it. Justin Johnson, thank you for the 5 Miswits memberships. What a legend. And guys, I plan on launching the Miswits merch tomorrow, and it's fire. Like I said, I'll just say this for a second to give a little bit of break on the video. Like, the merch is, I decided to get nice merch. So if just guys save it, you don't have to buy the merch, you don't have to get it, but it's just nice. It's high quality, okay? So, but anyway, I'm launching that, and I'm gonna launch the perks that I'm gonna lay out for all of the members and for the Patreon supporters and those that are subbed at Rockfin. We're gonna create like this group, these different benefits and perks for each group of people. So that should be coming soon, and then we'll have locals up. So just stay tuned, and shout out to all the legends, and thank you, Justin Johnson, for always helping people get to the Misfits. Much appreciated. So I think what I'll do actually is I may move to the next video. We'll move to the next video because that guy, I think that I'm losing the chat a little bit, and we may go back to it. So let's watch this video, and this is none other than Brian Cox, and we're going to talk about the flatness problem.
Now, why is it that we think that the known universe is larger than we can observe?
Well, one point is that it's expanding, and we always see the same radiation out there, so the glow of the Big Bang. But there are some deeper reasons. The one from the theory of inflation, the best way to explain the universe, the properties that we see.
Let me know if the sound is loud enough.
Is that it's very much bigger than the piece we can see. So, for example, we measure space to be what's called flat. I don't even have to say what's called flat. It is flat. So if you imagine slices of space, let's imagine slices of them at different times. So you just slice the universe and say, there's a big sheet. It's like this table.
Okay, like a table.
There's a sheet of space, and there's another sheet, and another sheet. And it can have a geometry, right? It can be flat like a tabletop, or it could be curved like a sphere, or it could be curved in the opposite direction, sort of like a saddle or a bowl. And we can measure that. And when we measure it, we see it's absolutely flat. And that's a very unusual.
All right, I see you guys say it's a bit quiet. I'll try and back off my mic a little bit, but everything is turned up. So if it's like you can actually hear it, then hard to hear. Is it really, really low? Oh, man. All right, let me see if I can find another one. I saw Justin ask for custom emojis. I'll make custom emojis. I'll try to make them tonight or tomorrow. See if I can find another version of the video. In the world. Yeah, that's really the only one. I don't know about this video. I mean, we can try to watch this one. This one's louder. We'll see if this all-star breaks it down pretty. They're all gonna say pretty much the same thing, and we'll cover it. So tell me if this is better.
If you add together sort of the three kinds of things that occupy the universe, the familiar matter, that's what we're made of and what our telescopes detect. The dark matter, that's the source of 85% of all the gravity we see in the universe, and we don't know what's causing it. And the dark energy, the stuff that's making us accelerate against the wishes of gravity. Each one of those components creates a curvature of the fabric of space and time, just as prescribed by Einstein's general theory of relativity. If you add those curvatures together, what you find is that they create a universe that is perfectly flat. Flat. Now, that's not the only shape the universe could have had. The universe could have negative curvature, and if it did, that would...
Did no one tell this guy that flat actually means curved?
We would have a saddle shape. And a negatively curved universe has a net positive energy. The universe is neither a spherical shape, the shape of a ball. That would be positive curvature, having net negative energy. Now, another way to get insight into this is to think about the energy of orbits. An object in orbit is gravitationally bound to what it circles. And bound orbits have negative gravitational energy. That's how we describe this system. Increase the elongation of the orbit by pumping energy, giving more speed to the object, and the circle distorts and becomes an ellipse. Give it even more speed, the ellipse gets more and more elongated. There's just the right amount of energy, just the right amount of extra speed you can give this object so that it goes so far away it never circles back. In fact, it escapes to infinity. At that point, that object and the system and the...
I don't know if you're familiar with this, but infinity doesn't actually exist.
It goes so far away it never circles back. In fact, it escapes to infinity. At that point, that object and the system and the orbiting object and the object around which it formerly turned has zero total gravitational energy. And that path is formally called a parabola. Give the object even more energy, then it gets to infinity and keeps going.
It gets to infinity and it keeps going, guys. This is how dumb modern cosmology really is.
Has net positive energy, and we call that trajectory a hyperbola. Now, you've actually seen these shapes before at home. Take a flashlight. All flashlights have a cone of light that emerges from them. If you take it and aim it straight at a wall, it'll make a perfect circle.
Oh, wow. Did you know that if it makes a perfect circle of light, it's actually a sphere?
Take it and tip the angle just a bit. That circle distorts and you get an ellipse. Tip the flashlight so it's parallel to the wall, and you'll see the shape on the wall and it'll take the form of a parabola. angle it a little more, it opens up even further and you get a hyperbola. Try that at home. So, these are what we call conic sections, intersections of a cone of light. And they relate to orbits and they relate to the energy that those objects have. Now,
this is actually a good analogy for the flatness problem.
If your space-time is flat, just as if your orbit were a parabola, it means the universe, the entire universe, possesses zero net total energy. Think about that. If the shape of the universe were anything else, positively curved or negatively curved, it would not have zero energy. It would have negative energy or positive energy. We have zero net total energy. Now you wonder, is that good or bad? There's a silver lining to this. What it means is that you can create the entire universe out of nothing because nothing has no net energy associated with it. Had the universe been endowed with either negative or positive energy, we'd be forced to confront the questions of what was the original source of energy that begat the universe.
Bro, pay attention to this part because this is an absolute slam dunk on modern cosmology.
Is that good or bad? There's a silver lining to this. What it means is that you can create the entire universe out of nothing.
I'm going to explain it. Just bear with me. We got 1 minute left.
Because nothing has no net energy associated with it. Had the universe been endowed with either negative or positive energy, we'd be forced to confront the questions of what was the original source of energy that begat the universe. And if it had some amount of energy, why is it that amount and not some other amount? The fact that we live in a zero energy universe bypasses that line of questioning. And does it leave us content in our emptiness? Perhaps. But we're no less enlightened by the ignorance that led to it.
I mean, bro. Okay, check this out. This is hilarious. So just remember what he just said, okay? So the flatness problem, right? It is the fact that the universe, quote unquote, in their modern cosmological paradigm is flat. And just like he said, you supposedly have the singularity and then everything expands out from there, okay? Well, then logically, based on the energy, right, or whatever that process was, you would have positive or negative curvature. So as it moves out, it would have curvature. It wouldn't be flat. Okay? In fact, it would have to be something other than flat. Couldn't be flat. Okay? Statistically speaking, it makes no sense. It literally couldn't be zero. This is the problem with these scientific communicators and the way that they talk to people, right? It's like they'll tell people gravity is mass attracting mass, even though that has long been thrown out within modern cosmology. This is the danger with this stuff, bro, because the actual model does not claim that there's zero net energy. They claim that it's mind-blowingly close to zero. To be specific, it's 0.00070 zeros 1. Okay? That's how close to zero the energy is. But it is not zero. You notice how he said that it was zero. And if it wasn't zero, we would have to confront the question, well then where did this energy come from? What was the actual source of the energy? Well, conveniently, we get to bypass that question. No, actually, you do not. You do not get to bypass that question. So you hear how he actually acknowledges it's a problem. Well, conveniently, they get to bypass it, but they don't. Now, of course, if it's too loud, I'm too loud. If it's 0.000000001, 70 zeros, okay? Now think about this. What is the statistical odds that everything in the universe was a singularity, which is an infinitesimally small point, something that can't even truly be conceived of realistically, and relativity, gravity, cannot be applied to it at all, right? It's just an idea. It's literally just a concept. Okay? And then the whole universe basically exploded and or expanded from that single point. It would obviously not just go straight out flat. Imagine throwing a grenade and it exploded and it just went out flat. It's absurd. Okay? So this is called the flatness problem. When you actually do the math, it's statistically impossible. It's mathematically impossible for that to just randomly have happened. For somehow the entire universe that is supposedly divisible universe is 46 billion light years, right? Supposedly this all came from a singularity, this huge giant universe, and it just had basically no energy and expanded out flat. So it's like basically impossible. It's called the flatness problem. This is one of the main fine-tuning problems. Okay? And what most people will do is they'll try and be like, "Oh, you don't get it. That's not a problem anymore. That's not a problem. It's inflation theory." It was the idea that there was like something called the inflaton, which is just a theoretical particle, an inflaton, the inflation particle. And that these inflatons, which don't exist anymore, but they did back then, caused inflation. And that the inflation caused it to actually expand out flat. Okay, that's the idea. That's the theory. That the inflation basically happened so quickly that it countered the expansion in all directions, since it was inflating so quickly with these inflatons. This is like top tier mainstream cosmology, bro. These inflatons causing this universe to inflate so quickly, right? Which is why they say that they don't exist anymore, right? And that we can't observe this anymore because the evidence shows that this idea clearly isn't happening, even within their own paradigm. That it basically countered the idea that it would be expanding in all directions, and it just made it flat. So they just made up this idea, right? They made up this idea that something happened. Okay, so long story short, this is a major fine-tuning problem because for it to be 0.0701, that close to zero net energy, right, is just insanely impossible. But that could happen if you had some like specific intelligent design or a fine-tuner. Now, obviously, if you've actually researched this conversation, you know there was no little singularity that exploded into 46 billion light years anyway, okay? But the reality is, when this idea was proposed by, I always forgot to say his name, but like Lamontre or whatever, a Catholic priest, he said there was a pre-existing energy. Okay, so long story short, he just told people, and this is the kind of stuff that they'll do, they'll tell people, oh, it's actually zero net energy, and conveniently, that helps us not have to answer the question of where did this energy come from, because there was no energy, and that can make us say that everything came from nothing. Which we just talked about what a privation is. That's ridiculous. Nothing comes from nothing. Okay, nothing in, nothing out, as we were talking about in ether cosmology earlier. It's just a ridiculous concept. But it actually isn't nothing, right? There is some energy. And it's just a major problem for cosmology. And I just told you the excuse they made. Now, what they always do, what they have like kind of their secret weapon, they'll always just throw the multiverse at it. There's a quadrillion universes. But eventually it would happen. I know it's like mind-blowingly impossible regarding all logic and probability, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and we can't actually thoroughly and viably explain it. But if you have an infinite amount of possibilities, an infinite amount of times, with an infinite amount of time, eventually everything, literally everything can happen. And then these mathematical impossibilities can actually begin to stack on top of each other, which is why it's called a fine-tuning problem. Because if you have the crazy odds happen once, well, simultaneously during that one little universe, the next one stacks on top of it and on top of it and on top of it. This is a major problem. Let me explain this concept to you, right? I've never understood this. If someone truly thinks about this modern cosmology, which we've refuted in many different ways, if it were true, if this current heliocentric model were true, you would still need a creator. Okay? For example, because these things are unrelated to each other. So let's talk about the idea that we're on a tiny speck of dust called the Earth, and we just happen to live there and we're insignificant, right? Well, what are the odds that it was able to sustain life? Okay, so we had to be just close enough. Now, there's something called the early sun paradox, and it's I forgot exactly what it's called, but it's about how, based on the proximity of the sun and the Earth back in the day, the Earth would have been frozen, but based on the timeline of their like geology and all of these like naturalistic, atheistic claims about like how life got here or could have got here, blah blah blah. They need such a long period of time that they needed there to be water here, so that life could even in theory begin or be sustained. But if they look at their cosmological model, then it's called the early faint sun paradox or something like that. Then the Earth would have been frozen and it wouldn't have worked. Okay, anyway, so just put that aside. Like, it doesn't matter. They just literally can make up anything. Oh, the atmosphere was different back then and we just don't understand it or something like that. But it doesn't answer the question. Have you come across Terrence Howard and him explaining harmonic resequencing? So what are your thoughts? I have not. That sounds very interesting. Look, I'll screenshot your super chat. Articulate, thank you for the $20 super chat, and I'll definitely check it out. That sounds pretty crazy. I mean, I guess I can kind of intuitively put together what that would mean. But yeah, I'll definitely look into it. That sounds cool. Okay, so think about this logically, right? So the Earth is just the right distance. You have the Goldilocks zone, and we're just in this right area away from the sun that we have a sustainable environment to where we could live. We have water and we have everything that we need.
Roger Kelly donated $20 through Super Chat. Have you come across Terrence Howard and him explaining harmonic resequencing? If so, what your thoughts?
That voice has got to change, man. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Okay, so there's just like, okay, there's some odds. Oh well, if you had the universe is so big that eventually that would happen. Okay. And then you have the sun and the moon in the sky, and they coincidentally look like they're the same size, even though supposedly the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun and just coincidentally exactly 400 times closer as well. So it creates the illusion that they're the same size, even though they're nowhere close to the same size. The sun's actually 400 times bigger than the moon. It just look like the same size in our sky, so much so that you can have perfect total eclipses, perfectly giving you the eclipse as if they're exactly the same size. Right now, of course, logically, you could just have them be the same size and you have a light for the day, light for the night, but who cares about logic, right? So my point here is, to make the point, the way the sun and moon look in our sky is completely irrelevant to sustainability, right? So you need the universe that just so happens to put this little speck of dust over here and then give you this perfect amount of energy so that you could expand out flat with 0.0701 net energy, so that somehow it just magically had something called the inflaton there that I can't really explain. No one can really explain, but I promise it was there, but it's not there anymore. But we don't know exactly what it is, but I promise that it used to be there because it had to be there, but still, that doesn't even really help us, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? And we say that it's zero net energy, but there actually isn't zero net energy. There actually is some energy. So where does the pre-existing energy come from? It doesn't matter. We'll just ignore it. There's a million different universes. Then it expands out and it becomes flat. Okay, and then you get this tiny little speck of dust over here, this ever-expanding universe of nothingness tucked away in the corner, and then somehow these stupid little rocks decided to become living organisms, and then fish jumped out of the water after they developed from little amoebas, and then they turned into humans after they were strawberries or whatever, right? It's also stupid. But anyway, the point is that you have to stack all of these improbabilities on top of each other over and over, where they're not even specifically related nor required for sustainability. So things like aesthetic coincidences, like the sun and the moon being the same size, is ridiculous. Or that the moon is going just the perfect rotational speed that we only see one side of it forever. If it was going 1/4 a mile per hour faster or slower, we'd see the rest of it. But it's just going exactly the right speed so that it stays there forever, looking like it's just one side of the moon. What does that have to do with whether or not we're close enough to the sun to survive? Nothing, right? You get the problem. That's why it's called a fine-tuning problem. Because
Electrifying CT donated $500 through Super Chat. Got King Dethroned. Wow. A history of the evolution of astronomy from the time of the Roman Empire up to the present day, showing it to be an amazing series of blunders founded upon an error made in the 2nd century by Gerard Hickson,
That is crazy. Is that actually $500? Wow, dude. Thank you so much. I think that says $500. That is crazy. Dude. Electrify. I'm going to read it for you. Got King Dethroned. Awesome book. History of the evolution of astronomy from the time of the Roman Empire up to the present day, showing it to be an amazing series of blunders founded upon an error made in the 2nd century by Hickson, 1922. In the mail today, already on chapter 7. Glad I bought the book. I hate that I just had to type out the title. Yeah, that's a super long title. Thank you so much, man, for the generous donation. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but that's crazy generous. That's really $500. I'm blown away. So I don't know if it was an accident. If it was an accident, you can let me know and I can try to figure out. I don't know how that works, if I can give it back to you or something. But thank you, brother. Yeah, that's crazy, man. Sorry, that like took me by surprise. I don't know. Just like email me if that was an accident. Okay, yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, that book is epic. I don't have a physical copy of it actually, though. I need to get a physical copy probably, but yeah. King's Dethroned. If you don't know, you should definitely check it out. I'm trying to see if he's saying anything in here to let me know. I don't know how that works. Yes, I've donated to you before on Rockfin. Wow. Well, thank you so much, brother. Seriously. I cannot thank you enough. Austin, stop already. Stop being thankful that someone... Yeah, okay. Anyway. Okay, so, and I hope that my point here is making sense, because I guess I did... Yeah, I obviously got distracted, but... People on Rumble be tripping, bro. It's so funny. So the statistical improbability of stacking all of the immensible odds on top of each other, right? Like just the crazy odds on top of each other is the problem. That's where you have the problem, okay? So anyway, there we go. We explained the flatness problem, just so you know. There's something else called the horizon problem. And see if there's like a brief explanation of it, or I'll just explain it. Okay, let's see if this explains it pretty good.
All of space and time exploded out of a tiny speck billions of years ago, and it's been expanding ever since. We know this as the Big Bang, and it explains a lot of why we see what we see when we look at the universe. But the Big Bang has a problem. The universe we see is too uniform. In the first instance of the Big Bang, some parts of the universe would have been hotter or colder than other parts. But today, everywhere we look, the universe is basically the same temperature. And that shouldn't really be possible. This is called the horizon problem, and we'll get to why it's called that in a minute. If two things are different temperatures and are in contact with each other, those things will balance out and end up with a temperature somewhere in the middle. Two parts of space...
Someone says, Austin, you're going to the debate on the 2nd? Yes, and Mount Juliet, I will be at the debate, yes.
Space will balance out if they can exchange energy with each other. They do that with photons, which move at the speed of light. But if space has been expanding for all the billions of years since the Big Bang, photons from one end of the universe have never been able to make it to the other end. Which means if you look east, you should see a different temperature than if you look west.
I see people saying something about the ads. Yeah, I guess the ads may be on. I can turn them off. But I will say this, and I'm not really going to cover this much here, but like I will say, bro, like I do find it distasteful that so many truthers, like, for one, I mean, you could just pay YouTube Premium. I look at that as like people pay college educations and I can go watch infinite amount of lectures and save them and stuff. And even though I prefer free speech over that, it's still an incredible source of information. So you can look at it like an investment for education purposes and stuff like that. And you never have to see an ad, right? You still support the people. But I will just say it's pretty funny that like all the truthers like get so triggered if an ad ever plays. Like I've made content this entire time with no ads ever. And like if an ad plays, people just like freak out. I get emails, I get messages, I get hate mail, I get all this crazy stuff about like an occasional ad. It's kind of crazy, but I do get it. Ads are annoying. I don't know. I guess it's on because I saw like 4 people say it all at the same time. But anyway, let's just continue watching
west. Those parts should never have been able to balance out. They're beyond each other's horizons. And yet, they have the same temperature. The way physicists usually get around this is by saying maybe the universe is much, much bigger than the Big Bang says it should be. If in the early moments of the Big Bang, the universe inflated very rapidly so that the only parts we can see today are...
All right, let me come over here because this is kind of important. Best channel to watch the December 2nd debate. Let's actually watch what Rico just dropped. Because if you don't know, there was a preacher that like called out flat Earth, got some pushback, and then he said he's got like 3 million followers on Facebook alone. He's like, I'm gonna give flat Earth my platform. Let's actually watch what Rico just dropped. I just clicked on it, and it's like me talking. Did you mean to drop this? You said that this was the info, and it's my live stream, brother. I was gonna try to pause the stream to play your video, Rico, but it's literally playing me. I'm gonna give flat Earth my... I accidentally pasted this one. So, okay, if you post the other one, then we'll watch it. Let's go back to the video. Sorry about that.
Are the parts that already had balanced out in temperature, then we'd see a universe that looks like the one we actually see. The problem with inflation is why? We don't have a good reason for space and time to speed up and slow down like that. But there's another way to solve the horizon problem. Maybe our understanding of the speed of light is wrong. If the speed of light was faster in the early universe than it is today, far-flung reaches of space could have equalized with each other long ago, and we wouldn't need any inflation to explain what we see. Of course, everything we know about the speed of light says it's fixed and finite, and we don't have great evidence that it was any different in the past.
Okay, so let's explain that. All right, so this is another major problem in cosmology that shows that this place, even if you believed in all this nonsense, which we've refuted it so many times on the channel. And like I said, dude, definitely stay tuned. Welcome to the Miswits Done 7227. Shout out. We're about to launch Miswits merch, hopefully tomorrow, definitely by the end of the week. Epic Miswits merch, definitely keep an eye out on that. If you're not part of the Telegram group, that's one of the best ways to keep up to date. I'm going to start being more active in there. That's t.me/Miswits, I believe. Anyway, and then we'll be launching the Miswits website and app here soon. And one of the things I want to just really announce this because I think it's going to be so epic is like a comprehensive like courses. It's not necessarily like a course like you have to go to school or anything, but it's like, oh, you want to learn about Michelson-Morley? Boom, there it is. And there is like a video, an edited video, and then there is like a put together explanation of it, right? And that way you can share this information, or you can be like, now it's going to take me a lot of time. I don't know if I may sell it for a couple bucks, you know, because it's going to take me so long to put it together. But you can be like, you can like gift it to someone. Like, look, dude, any questions you have. And I know that the sun, moon, topographical plane, compass, ether vortex, magnetic declination, astrological clock calendar app also has these things with playlists, and that's very cool and is very detailed. But I want to make like a comprehensive, like aesthetically pleasing, basically book with different chapters, but it'll all be on the website. It's going to be dope. So anyway, stay tuned for that. A lot of people are asking for that, and we're going to keep pumping out edited videos specific to specific subjects so that people can have more like shorter form digestible content that I make explaining these things, so you can share with other people or you can watch shorter ones. And then the long form like live streams, I'll keep doing those, and those will just be for the OG fans that want to be here and want to kick it, right? Or I wouldn't say fans, but you get it, like the OG familia, that like the people that want to sit here during the live streams or watch them. So anyway, that is a side note. But so the horizon problem is basically the idea that this universe expanded in all directions, right? And so there's a finite speed of light. It's c, right? So there's a constant speed of light. Light cannot go faster than that. What that means is that no information can go faster than that in this mainstream cosmological model, right? So if nothing with information can go faster than that, that includes particles or any type of energy, right? Well, the idea is that there's this homogeneous distribution of temperature, so it should be the same everywhere. Well, in order for there to be an even energy distribution everywhere, then the particles would have had to interact at some point, right? For them to be homogeneous and to be the same and evenly distributed, that means they had to be together. And of course, as you would say, with the singularity, right? So they would have to have been in direct contact and interaction with each other to have this homogeneous distribution that the model requires and claims. But the problem is that the distances away from each other, right, are way greater than how much distance could have been traveled in 13.5 billion years, the total time of the universe, at the fastest speed, which is the speed of light. Okay, so these particles, one particle over here, one particle over here, the model requires them to have been together at some point and directly interacting, right? But this is so many billions of light years away from this particle, and it's only had 13 billion years to get that far away from each other, right? And going the speed of light, because that's like the speed limit of the universe in this model, it couldn't have gotten that far away from each other. So it's called the horizon problem. You take any single point inside of the universe, and then you'll have an equidistant circle around it. None of those particles could have interacted with any other particle outside of that circle. That circle comes from the speed limit. So like if you go as fast as you possibly can in the universe, or as long as you possibly can for 13.5 billion years, then you can go a certain distance, right? Because speed equals distance over time. So our speed is constant. It's c. That's the speed. Equals distance over time, right? So speed equals distance over 13.5 billion years. So if c equals d over 13.5 billion years, then the distance is limited. Now, I said that many times in many different ways, somewhat redundantly, because I want you guys to really understand it. That's what the horizon problem is that it's physically impossible, according to their model, that these particles could have possibly have been beside each other interacting at some point and then been that far away. They haven't had enough time to get that far away. Even if they were going as fast as they possibly could, according to their model, but they are way further away than that. That's called the horizon problem. Combine the horizon problem and the flatness problem, you have very serious cosmological problems. And that was a very simple way of explaining it. And what they try to do is come up with anything they can, right, under the sun, to explain it away. They just make up whatever they possibly can to explain it away. But anyway, that is called the horizon problem. So hopefully found at least one way out of the 5 different ways I redundantly explained it that you understood. All right, so I see you dropped another link. Let's see if it's real this time. All right, so here's information about the You kill me with the country, I still love you though. Oh. Okay, never mind. Obviously, conspiracy music guru. This is the Dean Odell and Greg Locke debate meetup in Tennessee, December 2nd, 6 p.m. Central.
Search for photos of Earth, he said, because this will blow your mind. So I opened up the Google and I looked for photos of Earth. A lot of photos came up, he said. Click on the first. He said, that's the famous blue marble that everybody's seen. We've seen this photo 1,000 times upon our TV screen. But let me tell you something about that famous shot. It's not a photo at all, man. It was made in photo. He was.
I hope you're cool. I mean, you posted the video. There's the email if you want to. And then it's called. Dude, look at the name of the church. Global Vision Bible Church in Mount Juliet. It's actually close to where I used to go to school. All right, cool. Let me find this other one. Other vid. Okay. So anyway, and these are called fine-tuning problems in cosmology. I just realized that, it's already 12:30, so I'm actually going to wrap it up. But let me just give you the conclusion here, okay? So, and I may go fast here, but I'll try not to go too fast, okay? Here's the recap, right? So there's something called the fine-tuning problem in cosmology. Of course, if there's something that is finely tuned, then it requires a fine-tuner, okay? The idea is that contradicts the belief called the Copernican principle, which is that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position in the universe, right? So if you believe that the Earth is just tucked away in an insignificant corner of the universe and it isn't important, it doesn't have a special or unique position, then why would everything make it look like the Earth is in the center in a special position? And why would everything we observe consistently show us that it defies mathematical probabilities and impossibilities and looks like it was finely tuned, right? Because the antecedent is a fine tuner. So we named a few of the problems, but the way they claim that stars are developed, that if there was a 2% increase or decrease in energy of the strong force, then you wouldn't be able to even have the actual transition from hydrogen to helium that they claim actually creates the stars, which is one of the fundamental staples of their entire model. You have the flatness problem, right? Which is where if there was supposedly a singularity and everything exploded or expanded out from there, you would have negative or positive curvature, meaning that it could not just be flat. Like if you throw a grenade, it doesn't just explode horizontally in all directions. It goes in all directions, right? Because it is an explosion or an expansion that's omnidirectional, right? Well, they look at the universe and supposedly it's flat. And so it's basically impossible. You heard Neil deGrasse Tyson sitting there trying to say, well, there's actually zero net energy. Well, in fact, there isn't. In their model, they claim that it's 0.0, so it's 0.701 positive energy. That's the amount. So as close to zero as really you can even fathom, but it's not technically zero. That's because zero, it just doesn't even fundamentally make any sense when they say it's not perfectly flat. It's just we can't really tell. It looks like it is completely flat. Okay, and then you heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say that it was zero, because then we can say, well, we don't have to address the problem of where did that energy come from? What was the source of the energy that supposedly started the universe from the singularity? So when you have the flatness problem, it's like statistically and mathematically impossible, effectively, for the universe to have expanded out from a singularity, like some type of explosion, and then just been completely flat. That's called the flatness problem. You have the horizon problem, right? If you actually take the supposed speed of light being constant, so that's the speed limit of the universe, the supposed age of the universe, which is 13.5 billion years old, and you combine this to the fact that all the temperature and energy in the universe is supposed to be homogeneous, meaning all of the particles are evenly distributed with energy because they all came from the same singularity, then they wouldn't have had enough time to actually get the distances apart from each other they supposedly are, right? So speed equals distance over time. So if speed is c, that's the speed limit to the universe, that equals d over 13.5 billion years. That means in 13.5 billion years, it only could have gone so far away, going the maximum speed of c. So there's no way it would have had enough time, no matter if it was going as fast as possible, to actually get as far away from each other as the particles are. But they would have had to directly interact to have this even energy distribution that's required in the mainstream cosmological model. That is called the horizon problem, because you would have a horizon, a circle effectively around you in all directions, equidistant, where that would be the limit of how far away you could have possibly traveled with that amount of time. That's called the horizon problem. These are fine-tuning problems that make no sense without there being some type of design to this place. You also, of course, have what we talked about earlier with Edwin Hubble looking out at the distant galaxies and seeing that they all move in relation to the Earth, and it makes the Earth look like it's in the center. So they had to create the idea that there was an accelerative expansion, meaning the universe is expanding and accelerating in all directions, and it just creates the illusion that we're in the center, right? As opposed to possibly the reality, which is just that we're in the center. Edwin Hubble himself said, yeah, well, this seems to imply that we are actually stationary and in the center of the universe, analogous to the ancient conceptions of a central Earth. This position can never be disproven, but we reject this idea and we avoid it at all costs because it's intolerable and horrific, right? We must do everything we can to avoid that possibility unless we have no choice. Now, I would argue they clearly actually have no choice logically, but they've been denying it anyway. Then we also covered how relativity had to explain the evidence that the Earth is not orbiting around the sun due to the Michelson-Morley experiment, and this was the idea that space and time is all that was outside of the three dimensions, and he created the bending and warping of space-time in this 4-dimension addition to the universe of the time, which was with an ether, Newtonian framework, and absolute frame of reference. We covered how this is fundamentally illogical and inadmissible on its face because space is a concept. It's the idea of nothingness. It's a privation. It's nothing in and of itself, like a shadow or zero or nothingness or emptiness. That's what space is. It's just a coordinate system we use to describe a certain volume, length, width, breadth, right? We can't actually claim that it's physical, but he attributed physical properties, bending, warping, curving, to these concepts, space and time, time being how we quantify the idea of passing, right? We actually just quantified change in motion in the sky, the fact we see things change, and we say that that's time, and we quantify it with the motion of the sky. That's another concept. So these are two conceptual abstractions. You can't combine them and then all of a sudden they are not conceptual abstractions. They fundamentally are, which means they cannot have physical properties, which means it's invisible on its face. Just like Nikola Tesla said, space cannot have curvature for the simple fact alone that space cannot have physical properties. So on its face, it's just completely illogical and impossible, but they had to propose that idea. No one's been able to replace it or fix it to this day, even though it's been disproven many, many, many times, even since it was accepted fallaciously, right? Because no one can come up with another alternative to explain why all the evidence shows that this universe, quote unquote, is very finely tuned and that the Earth's position is special and unique. So they haven't been able to come up with some type of alternative. And that is an actual recollection of the situation that we are currently in. And in fact, whenever they took this idea of relativity, which is what this entire series is named after, because it's the attempt to explain away the evidence that shows we're in the middle, then they applied it to the sky. For example, in 1933, Fritz Zwicky saw that the galaxy clusters only had 1% of the mass predicted by relativity or any theory of gravity at the time, right, to actually keep the galaxies from escaping the cluster. So then they created dark matter. Right? And then, of course, the idea that the universe has to be accelerating, expanding in all directions, now up to 8 times faster than the speed of light, and a minimum of 4 times faster than the speed of light, requires an immense amount of energy to do that. That's called the cosmological constant, or dark energy. Dark energy and dark matter combined make up 96% of the supposed universe, and no one knows what they are. They can't define them, detect them. They have no idea how to even explain them theoretically. They just must be there, or this Earth actually is in a special, unique position. Maybe the universe actually is geocentric and it is finely tuned, and there was some type of intelligent agency or fine tuner behind the fine tuning, right? So that's the situation that we're in right now. We could go on and on when it comes to the galaxy rotational speeds, to the quasar and supernova anomalies, to the redshift distribution anomalies, right? And then back over to the flatness and to the horizon problems, to the Hubble tension problems, and on and on and on. And so then the recap of this, like I explained earlier, is this is actually a philosophical bias that taints cosmology. It taints the ability for people to look out, see the observation for what it is, the evidence for what it is, and then actually incorporate it honestly to have a better understanding of where we are. To gain this better understanding, you're going to have to actually be honest about what the evidence is. This is misportrayed to people as if it is actually scientific or definitive, right? And that's why I then explained that it obviously is a very significant discussion, because when you teach a child that they're on a tiny speck of dust tucked away in an insignificant corner of the universe that does not have any special or unique importance or position whatsoever, then they're going to internalize that as part of their worldview. They're going to think, well, fundamentally, that means I'm not really that important because it's just random, chaotic happenstance. It's just chaos, right? There's no true meaning or purpose or intention behind any of the things I experience as life. That is a huge deal to teach children and you teach it to them as if it's a definitive scientific fact, so they don't have an alternative in their mind, when in reality, all the evidence says the exact opposite consistently for all recorded history, and you actually do mental gymnastics, reifying concepts, which is where you attribute concreteness to a concept, right? That's a fallacy. It's called reification fallacies, like space and time and relativity, where you then begin to make up things like dark matter and dark energy, where you then to make up stuff like inflatons. You just start making up all kinds of random, off-the-wall, ad hoc ideas and post-hoc rationalizations to try to keep your philosophy intact because you want the Earth to not be special or unique. That is the reality of the situation of modern cosmology. Shout out to my boy Justin Johnson, I believe again. Justin Johnson again, 10 memberships. Thank you so much, brother. Welcome to the Miswits, whoever got the memberships, and we will have the Miswits merch launched soon, so keep an eye on that. Should be cool. Hopefully that was a pretty good recap. It wasn't too fast. I tried not to be too fast, but Austin, you're too powerful to not run with what I need to say. I'm not sure what you're saying, brother. All right, cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. My eyelids are getting heavy, and I also have to get up early and work out. I got to stay on point. So let me give you guys some announcements of kind of what's going on and some housekeeping. I didn't want to leave you guys hanging with the stream tonight, but like I said, we started late because Robert Bennett, that PhD physicist that was on In the Field Part 1 and 2, came and had a discussion over on Ether Cosmology. I dropped the link in the chat. I'll drop it again. You guys should definitely go check it out. It was a very cool conversation. That is Ether Cosmology on YouTube. Go show my boy Toby some love and sub it up. and I dropped the link in the chat on YouTube again, and I dropped them in Rumble and Rockbin. Okay. So I told you guys that we have the etheric state launching. So let me come over here. So we have the community fast coming up, and we're planning for around 5 days from now, right? You actually come to the website, we kind of explain the community fast and what's going on here. And you can actually come over here. And if you make any purchases for these blends to be part of the fast, this helps you maintain your fast, right? They're actually very incredible, man. Anyway, you get 20% off the exclusive etheric state merch for the community fast. If you have over a $200 purchase, which would be like, say, 2 of the 16 ounces, then you get 35% off. And here's the merch again, in case you don't remember. It's pretty cool. I really like this design. Hopefully you guys like it, but I just wanted to announce it. It's high quality merch, and then you put in the coupon that you will receive in your email. If you already got some of the blends, I will be sending you out an email tomorrow. Then it'll be automatically sent to anyone else. Everyone will get the email with the exclusive coupons to get, literally, I calculated it to where I don't make any money at all on this. I just want you guys to have the merch so we can all kind of have it as like a souvenir of partaking in the community fast. So it should be very cool. There's the other announcement. And yeah, something else is I really want I want people to get the merch, and then when you're doing the fast, maybe occasionally document it, and everyone just send me, and I'll set up a specific place to send it. Send me like a picture of you in your merch, and we're going to create like a montage of all the people that participated in the community fast, and then we'll upload it on the video. So that'll be very cool. Also, if you have any experiences, say I know people used to have migraines and their migraines went away, or I know someone that lost over 100 pounds, or people that had restless leg syndrome go away, arthritis go away, eczema go away, psoriasis go away. There are stories of diabetes going away, both 1 and 2. Let us know your experience that you have so that we can help share it with other people. And if you want to remain anonymous, you can, just so that we can motivate other people to do this. I think it's the key to really kind of resetting, detoxing, and potentially curing like some what you consider to be lifelong ailments. I think it's a super cool idea for us to all work together and hold each other accountable. And it's like, if I don't really want to go work out in the morning, if I don't want to get up at 5 tomorrow morning and actually go work out, it's already like 1, so 5 or 6 in the morning to work out. If I had someone to be like, hey bro, get up, we got to go, to hold you accountable, it helps you actually accomplish your goal. So that's the idea of the community fast. So hopefully you guys participate. Should be cool. You'll get access to the private group once you purchase everyone's going to be receiving their email. Once I have their order numbers, you'll get the email, whatever email you put in, and then you'll get access to the private community group where we're going to have like morning calls. We're going to all like kind of coordinate during times that maybe normally you would be eating a meal. We're all going to kind of have like group calls. I'll give you guys some behind the scenes of kind of my experience, and yeah, it should be cool. I think it's going to be very cool. There is that, because I know that's coming up in a few days, so I wanted to make sure you guys all fully know it in case you didn't see the other one. I'm also putting together like an epic like motherload ebook, if you will, of like all this crazy fasting information. So I have to finish putting that together, but I definitely stay tuned for that, and I'll try to get it shot out to everyone that participates and orders within the next 5 days and gets into the community fast. I'll just send you guys the ebook for free. It's just taking me time. It's taking a lot of time and energy to really compile a lot of that energy. I mean, a lot of the information, but that's all out of love. Okay, there's that. We're launching the Misfits merch here soon. So definitely stay tuned for that. And then we're going to have an app coming soon as well. So also, we have all these things are in the works. A lot of them are going to be released this week. We're also going to create the like the course, if you will, where it's like all of the different cosmological and true earth discussions or topics broken down with edited videos and visualizations, maybe even like kind of animations and explanations for all of these things. I'm like over here rapping, and like actual like typed out explanations so that you can study, learn these things, or that you can send them to your friends and family with like a nice aesthetically pleasing little ebook, or different chapters and different animations and videos to help wake your friends and family up. Also, I will later announce that I'm offering certain consultations for that very thing, in case you want me to maybe have a discussion with someone that you think it's difficult for you to talk to this about. But obviously don't try to force someone there or anything like that. Just like we were talking about, That's the worst way to ever try to wake someone up. If someone's genuinely curious or like, I don't think that I'll be able to answer all their questions, and you want me to sit down with them for a little bit, and you'll be able to do that. Okay, there's most of the announcement. The links are in the description. So all of my links should be compiled in the description right there. I think that's about it. Sorry, there's a lot of housekeeping going on. And just so you know, for my intention is I want to kind of remove this from the content, like where I'm explaining all of this. So when we get the website up, just stay tuned there and also sign up for the newsletter I'm going to make. And then you can kind of get an announcement as to what we're doing. And I'll give you guys access to my calendar. So you'll see where I'm going to make appearances. Like you would see that December 2nd, I'm going to that debate in Mount Juliet. I may be presenting at some point. I don't know exactly. We don't know exactly how it's all going to go down. Be able to kind of see what different shows I'm going to be on and when I'm having different people on and stuff like that, and all the different updates about the merch and all that. It would just all be on the website and the app. So anyway, I know that was a lot, but I wanted to give you guys an update on what's going on. We're going to like try to really level up. It should be cool. And I'm still trying to, one of the major goals for me going into the end of this year and into next year is to try to get a podcast up and running. And then to try to get like the equipment required to like make really professional man on the street videos. And we're doing the things with the audit NASA as well. A lot of stuff going on, man. Right. And I really want to go all in on all of this. I just have to make sure that I'm able to like maintain doing it. And so we'll see how it goes, but there's kind of an update. Sorry if some of you guys found that boring, but I know a lot of people have been asking me for a lot of those updates. So there it is. All right, cool, man. Yeah, so ethericState.com, that's where you can get involved in the fast, and it's got the merchandise link right there on the website. Now, I may update the website again where it's like right there on the first page, but anyway, if you just go to the shop tab, you'll see that you can click shop now for the merch. It'll take you right there to the merch. Yeah, I think it's etheric.creator/spring.com, but it's easier just to go to the website. So cool. And that link is in the description. If you got any questions about any of that, you can email me, telegram me. And like I said, if you have any suggestions or connections for future In the Field guests, then you go to inthefieldguests@gmail.com. So I really want to remove where I have to cover all of this. I'll still occasionally cover it, but it's just like, it's a lot. Bro, you guys are going to love the Miswits merch though, bro. It's fire. It's legitimately fire. I already ordered mine. You work out and do heavy weights while you do the fast, and do heavy weights while you do the fast. Joey, thank you for the $5 super chat. I don't think you should work out with really heavy weights if you're like full on fasting for multiple days. I don't think that would be ideal. I'm not going to give any suggestions as to what people do. You know, I consistently can work out, and I don't eat during early in the day anyway, but I'm not giving any suggestions to anyone. I think you should be cautious of it. That would be my. So now, like, I also want to kind of encourage people, bro. Like, even if you think you can't just fully do, it's technically a water fast, right? And then you have the electrolyte blends. So like the fire and coal, it has like, it's going to help detox what your body does. It start to kind of like release these different toxins that are in your body once it's not being trapped down with so much food, and the activated charcoal helps get it out, right? And then the cayenne and the fire, whether that's just the fire and the coal, starts to help circulate your blood, right? If you don't like the kick that's with the fire, or you don't want activated charcoal, or you want to switch it up here and there, if you're going to go work out, you have just the plain one, you have the fuel, you have just the coal. So you have the coal, the fire and the coal, and the fire and the fuel. And anyway, I can tell you from personal experience, like when I was trying to just go quite a while without eating, if I started to get really hungry, if I just fixed, some water, like preferably clean water, of course, still water, I threw some of that in there, like it made my hunger, quote unquote, hunger pains go away. It's actually very incredible. And then this combination of this balance that you need, right? This potassium and sodium and magnesium while you're fasting, and then removing these toxins all at the same time, but in a very specific and balanced way, begins to let your body really isolate what's wrong with it and fix the situation, right? And it helps you just, I'm saying this out of love, sincerely, like out of love. I mean, technically, if you don't want to do the blends or whatever, you can just still know when we're doing it, and you can still fast too. Like, this isn't about anything other than like, I actually feel passionate about this because when people told me their experience, they were basically telling me that their whole life changed. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is super important. Super important that like we get the truther community like healthy, right? And we start trying to spread that like let's get rid of all these elements and like detox and let our body kind of reset. I think it's important. And I've found it's very difficult to get people to stop eating sometimes. Because people just, they like to eat their food, you know? I'm like, bro, just try it. Do you have migraines or brain fog, or are you tired or like anything like that? Like, do you have some type of ailments, even diabetes, bro? Do you like, and now be careful. And that's why I'm going to create that like mother load of things, right? If you do say have diabetes one, right? Because you have to obviously be careful. But you can do like fruit fasting. And I want to give you guys this huge like free ebook that's taken me forever to put everything together of information for you guys. I'm also going to put all kinds of files of like the scientific papers and the experiments and the studies that show all the benefits of fasting, and it'll be on etheric state under there'll be a file section with all of that, and then you'll get sent your ebook, right? So I gotta finish putting the ebook together, but cool. Yeah, I'm putting a lot on my plate, but I'm just trying to hook you guys up. I'm just a little scared to do it. Well, like I'm saying, I'm not sure if you said something before that as to why you would be scared of doing it, but I think your super chat is off. You had a $500. You had a 500 donations and several others. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Roger Kelly. I read that. I read the super chats. What do you mean you think that it's off? What? I mean, I'll double check. I think I've read every super chat. But I forgot where I was at. Lost my train of thought there. I'm pretty tired, man. No, I've done a lot today. Then okay. Oh yeah, oh man, I should have announced this earlier. Okay, we have a new format for the Schooling Globers, and I think I'm actually going to be working with Earth Awakening's Earth Awakening's Discord, where we set it up every Wednesday night there, where there's like a stage. I'll give my presentation for the subject covered that week, and then there are people that will be able to interact, and obviously Globers, quote unquote, will be prioritized, right? And it'll obviously be only respectful conversations, none of the nonsense, but where I can interact with multiple of them, and so that way we can ensure the Globers you guys may have been watching, where we could never get them to actually call in, and then true earthers or flat earthers would end up calling in and just kind of talking about random stuff, and that's not really the idea of the show. The idea of the show is to like talk about a specific subject, or kind of just bury the notion that the earth is in fact this spinning cartoon globe, and then have people come in that believe in it and have the discussion back and forth so it can be edifying for people. And so we've created a format, I think, and hopefully we'll be launching that tomorrow. At the least it would be by next week. So we have a new format coming for Schooling Globers. It's going to be super cool. Let's see what this says here. This guy is spot on. Fasting has had a major positive impact on my physical and mental health. Much love. Keep it up. I'm loving the content. Thank you so much. FE for life. Thank you for $10 super chat and the comment. Yeah, man, it's crazy, bro. Like, just honestly, just doing like intermittent fasting, it will like change things for you. And if you eat all the time or like regularly, your body won't be used to slowing down on the food, right? So you'll have to kind of work your way into it. And that's why I think that those blends are so fire. And if you think like, dude, there's tons of servings in the blends. But yeah. Anyway, like it'll just help you. If you're like, oh man, I normally eat at 9 or 10 or whatever when I wake up. Just drink some of that, bro. Drink some of it. And you'll get used to it. It gets way easier. Where it's the point now where it's like really easy for me to go long duration without eating food. Like when it comes to like many days, like I don't know, we're gonna see, right? But yeah, I just encourage everyone to try it. Intermittent fasting, I'm like a very strong advocate for doing intermittent fasting. So let me see if I missed any super chats. I read every super chat, brother. Didn't miss any of them. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about. All right, my eyes are getting super heavy, man. So, cool, man. Etheric state, it's in the description, and I'll have my merch to show you guys soon. It takes a little bit for the merch to get there, but if you guys think that's like a pretty cool idea, is And we'll start kind of trying to regularly have these like fasting, even if some people are just doing intermittent fasting and trying to integrate that in, where we like talk to each other, support each other, and we have our exclusive merch, and we like kind of create a community out of it. I think that'll really help encourage other people. Dude, if you have like loved ones that have any health issues, or you think that you really need to lose weight, like just try and get them excited about it. That's why I'm doing everything in my mind to try to make it exciting, like really cool merch. It's like high quality, cool looking merch. I think it looks cool, at least, you know, I think it's fresh. And then like an ebook with all this different support, all this different science, and then like a private group where people will talk to you and do video calls with you and encourage you through it, and you can share your experiences. You can have your experience heard by many other people. Ideally, thousands of people will be encouraged by your own testimony or your experience. Where we also integrate like everyone that's involved and has their merch and stuff into like a little montage of it. I think that this is just symbolic of people kind of coming together for some of the more important things, right? Take it or leave it. I talked about it a lot. I eat 6 meals a day, but cut it out, no prob. The electrolytes sustain me when I get hungry, though, 6 times a day. Nice, bro. Very cool, man. Don't forget to drink the best water you can while fasting. Lots of. Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. Is like water fasting. Throw that the electrolytes in there, and obviously you want to drink clean water, distilled water, etc. Go to bed. Yeah, no, I am. I think that's everything. So stay tuned for the new website and app, and then the new Misfits merch. Check out the Etheric State merch. Check out or stay tuned. Check your email if you do get the blends for the community fast for your coupon for the merch. I'll have those all sent out tomorrow. You can get 20% off or 20% off or 35% off over $200 purchase. I'm eventually going to create like a little package so you get like your monthly merch or whatever, like the new exclusive like design for that month, and then like your specific little ebook and like whatever preferred flavors you have that you can just get on like a schedule so it always comes. I'll have to set that up though. That's in the works. We got a lot of stuff coming. Just keep up to date, man. I guess that's all I got to say. I could just keep going. There's just a lot. Love to hear about Austin's spiritual experience while fasting. Yeah, I mean, like really quickly, man, like that was actually a dry fast. And I mean, I am kind of skinny, so it like, you know, I started feeling effects pretty quickly, but I was just like out. I lived on 5 acres at that point, by myself, just me and my dog, like no one around me. And I just, you know, cut off my phone. I didn't get on social media. I didn't do anything like that. I just read the scriptures. I read like Enoch some, but I was just like meditating, praying, and just fasting. And I'm not even saying that I was just like praying around the clock or anything. I wasn't. I was just like not eating, not drinking, and just chilling. And I had like crazy spiritual experiences. I was like looking for certain answers, and all of a sudden I knew I had these moments of clarity that I knew exactly what the answer was for the question I was looking for, right? Like I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. I knew exactly what the answer was. I knew exactly where to look to find the answers. I would go read the scriptures and then boom, it would answer my question. Crazy stuff like that. It was just a very spiritual experience. And then I actually at one point started to like, with my eyes wide open, it looked like I started to see geometric patterns built into the world. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it was almost like I was tripping or something, but I was obviously just 100% sober fasting. It was just a very crazy experience for me, yeah. So I think that fasting is like, could really change your life, man. It really could. So there you go. There's a brief overcap of it. Fasting is for prayer, people. It has benefits. It has benefits. Fasting is good for you in many ways. Like I said, there's like a few people that they come here and they just want, like, no matter what's being talked about, right? Like they just want to say negative things and then like say the same repetitive like religious attacks. Like, do you not ever get tired of that? It's like very similar to clovers. Gotta fight this broken heart I shouldn't have. Use all of that as motivation to better yourself. Use it as motivation to work out, etc. And like I said, I'm actually want to create a little group where kind of motivate some of the men in the community, the younger men, to like we're gonna have like workout groups, and we're gonna like really try and be productive and like create networks and like help strong men like help men become strong to like lead. So that's something else I'm passionate about as well. And I am also looking into the homeschooling thing. It'll all end up being on the website because I can't keep doing this. I can't just sit here and talk about what all we're gonna do. We got a lot of stuff going on. Just stay tuned. All right. I love you guys. Seek and speak truth unequivocally. The weak find contentment in the consensus of ignorance. So who cares what other people think? Links to support in the description. I'll make sure to catch up with anyone that goes through any other avenues, PayPal, Cash App, or whatever. Yeah, and then just don't worry about what other people think, man. They're always going to attack you, bro. Like, let's just elevate to the next level as a community and start to network and start to like really get ourselves in like a healthy state mentally, spiritually, physically. Start viewing this whole situation with clarity. Start talking to people in good faith instead of like super toxic, redundant debates and attacks and all this petty like, oh, I'm anonymous behind the internet, I can bash you and tear you down, and let's have all this. Just elevate beyond that. If people want to do that, just leave them over there, right? Because we should just elevate. And I created a test group in Telegram where I started doing different tests and stuff like that. So stay tuned. We have a lot of stuff going on. We should just elevate. I'm like kind of tired of seeing people like the truther community kind of be stagnant and divisive and stuff like that. And so I think we should just step it up. So yeah. And when you find the truth, speak up, right? Speak up. That's the point. Very important. So yeah, cool. And of course, as it pertains to whether or not people are going to accept you, like, no, they're not. A lot of people are not, but speak up anyway, right? It doesn't matter what they think, because what's true is rarely popular, and what's popular is rarely true. So, all right, I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have the new Skull and Globers format done. Yeah, if you need me, you know the avenues of contact. All right, much love. Peace.
No. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Mickelson Morley, it showed that the earth they don't move, huh? What they do, shorten the length of the ruler. Hey, that's just how they fooled y'all. Tune in Wednesdays, bet that we gon' school y'all. Mickelson Morley, it showed no displacement. Mickelson, Gale, Pearson, it measured rotation. Let's break it down in layman. That means the earth is stationed. No planets and spaceships, they're all animations. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend. Relatively speaking, first day after the weekend.